Hello everyone, and welcome to our next video on ways to colour black and white photos. Today we're going to look at colouring skin using gradient maps, and we're looking at skin diversity and the colours. How do you know which colour you're going to need? We've got one here, and I've coloured most of this with gradient maps. And just as a refresher, I've placed all of the skin into one group here. So there's only one mask for all of the skin areas, and within that we have some solid colour layers for red, a curves layer within that as well, which is limited and masked as well. And we have a range of gradient maps used for cheeks, lips, and the broad colour of the skin. And we have hair and the background also coloured with gradient maps. Here we have another image. If we look down, we have a master mask here for skin, and I've named it skin. Have some preparation layers along the way, but I wanted to show you how we move from the black and white to the colour using gradient maps. Now if we look at the zones, and these are the tones, black and white greyness. So here I've divided from pure black to pure white into 10 zones. So you could see here this is 10% dark, 90% dark, 10% light. We have a look, and I click on the colour picker. You can see 20%. So this is the brightness here. If I come to the next one, you can see that's 30%, and so on all the way to 100% brightness or pure white. What I have next is a mid-range skin colour that we might use as a starting point. Let's have a look here. We have an 80% brightness, 29% saturation, and 26 hue value. Down here we have the RGB value, 205 down to 171 with green, and blue is at 145. And it gives you approximations for CMYK and LAB if that's what you're used to. So this is our normal colour blend mode, normal blend mode I should say. If we look here, we can see that's just in normal. Now the problem is this colour sits on top of the tones in a grayscale image. And that's not what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve a natural looking image as if it was created in colour. So the next layer, which is actually exactly the same. So if we come down to the colour layer, you can see it's in colour blend mode here. But if I change that to normal, you can see it's exactly the same colour. But when we apply it to in colour blend mode, like the layer blend mode, it's quite different. And you can see the skin tone changes according to the darkness or the black and white intensity that is in the image below. If we change blend modes, we have hard light here. Again, a gradient. the more white. And you can see color blend mode does not touch 100% white, and it does not touch 100% black. Hard light, in comparison, will color all the way to the darkest blacks, but it does not show on the whites. However, you can see the colors for both sit, and they look as if they sit back into the grey scale rather than sitting on top as the normal blend mode. Another common one that we use for skin colouring is overlay blend mode, or soft light as well. Does not touch the white, does not touch the black. And you can see here with overlay the greyness compared with the hard light. Shows a lot more grey. And this can be confusing for people when they first start colouring skin. You're using the same colour for all of these layers, but the visuals are very different. So you don't always need to change the colour that you're using to apply, but by changing the blend mode, you can change the perceived colour. If we look at the colour picker here, for hard light through the 50%, we have 29% and 80%. If we go to colour, the brightness is quite similar, but the saturation is much higher, and that's what you can see. We go to overlay, much brighter, that's 80%, but the saturation is 29, exactly the same. But you may see them as slightly different. Now for our bottom layer here, we're going to do something slightly different. We're going to use a gradient map. And to do that, we might load our special gradients that are available on Teach Me to Colour Facebook group. And they're available compatible for Photoshop, GIMP and Paint Shop Pro. Very easy once you've downloaded them. We just open the gradient panel. So we go Windows, click on Gradients. Oh, I closed it. Bring it back. Click the hamburger, and we're going to import gradients. Navigate to where you'd saved your gradients that you'd downloaded, and it's that easy. You can see we have a range of colours, particularly designed for colorizing black and white grayscale images. We have cool colours, we have diverse skin tones from islands, Southeast Asia, American, Latin American, Africa. Okay, so there's a big range. You could use them from the country perspective, and they have definitely been sampled from images of portraits. You could use them in combination with a cool and a warm or a dark in any way you like. You don't necessarily have to use this according to, oh, I haven't got somebody from Romania that I'm colouring. Once you start using them, you'll get to see the ranges and the capacity that's there. So I've selected, as we would, our skin, and now I'm going to create a solid colour layer. If you click on this, unfortunately, we've dropped off the screen, but the second option down is gradient, and that's not where we're going to stop. You might think so. We're actually going to go to the second to bottom one, which says gradient map. So when you're following along, make sure it says gradient map, and here gradient map, and you'll have an icon that looks a little bit like the gradient. Currently we're on the mask, so that's just showing in there. Now we click once, we'll do that again. Click once on the gradient map and it opens up to the gradient editor. And here we are. We can now choose where we are. It doesn't really matter. That one will do. Celtic, Japan, Caucasian, Caucasian 3. So there's a combination. Let's have a look at the gradient map editor. We have the darker ends at the left, the lighter, the brighter colour on the right. So again, if I pull this across, we can see here brightness is just 46%. As we come back to the next stop and click on here, brightness is at 78%. And that's how you can navigate. You click the square, click the colour, it will give you the information, but equally you can move this to anything you like if you wish to customize any of the gradients, and then you can save it. But I'd recommend just starting following these, so I'll just cancel that. I didn't want to change anything. Now the diamonds here are the feather between each of these stops. So you can see this is a darker colour, this is a lighter colour. If in your image you want to make it lighter, let's move the diamond so that it will transition slightly more quickly, but the bulk will be lighter. Now you may notice the checkerboard on either end. That's because these have been designed not to be applied to pure white, which would be the reflective part of skin, and not on pure black. We have very dark, and there's the feather. Okay, so let's go from there. Oh, I haven't turned that off. That would help. There we go. Now this is to show you the difference between a gradient map and a solid colour layers over the tones. Here, if I use the eye picker 50% like we did before, nope, good trick. I have the mask selected. We need to go to the gradient itself for it to read. So now we can try the eyedrop. It selected the colour, saturation 36 and brightness 88. If I come to the brighter end of the scale, you can see saturation is a little lower and the brightness increases. What we do need to do is move this from normal blend mode, because we would very rarely use normal blend mode, and if we move it down to colour, so that it again gives that perception of sitting behind the grayscale. See the transition in the tones different to the colour of a solid colour all the way through. So if I get my eyedropper now at 50%, make sure I've got the gradient selected. We have 50% here, and we'll be able to see the colour transition. You can move it depending on, every image is different. The lighting is different, people's genetics is different, the processing of the grayscale will vary. So there is no one number that applies even in a range of skins from people from specific countries. You may find you need to move this. That's a good idea. You can just play where we have a dark colour at the end. Okay. So that's the theory of gradient map. And keeping in mind it's very different to a gradient, because the mapping part is the computer filter processes the darker colours and maps it to the darker colour, which is why we have here. If we were using a normal gradient, it would be either top to bottom or central out. Okay, it's generally a linear progression in colour. When we see the gradient map on skin tones, because people's faces are bumpy and they have light cheeks and dark shadows and contours. So this is a process that will really help contour the image that you're working with. Okay. Let's have a look at this image. So I've already loaded our master mask that we discussed in the previous image. I've also put an auto correction on the curves. If I turn that off, I just felt that was a little bit dull. The skin tone contrast needed to be improved, so I've just added that, and we can sit that. I normally put my curves layers in. Now it's disappeared because we haven't actually prepared our skin. Let's see how quickly we can do this. I'm not going to do the full colorization today. Let's have a look. Just to give you an idea of what gradient map looks like, because the best way will be for you to practice. And, oh, that's not skin. It's not 100%, but you'll get the idea. Okay, I'll do a paint bucket and go jump onto the master mask. And there we have our normal skin tone base. Now I can turn that off because I'm not sure that that's what I'm after. I'm going to come up here, or not. I'm going to come down here, click create new layer, and it's the second from the bottom, a gradient map. Don't panic. I'm going to move that. Wow, let's come all the way in the bottom of our master mask. Doesn't matter what it's chosen because I'm going to come down and select a new gradient. Come on. Let's go. I think we've got some, Indian subcontinent. 1, 2. Let's go with 2. May look a bit odd, but let's put that into color mode. We can reduce the intensity. Now the good part is you can actually add this back in from here just to balance it up just a little bit. Now currently in color mode that looks a little bit red to me, so let's try overlay instead. Looks better. if you're concerned it is too red, click that radio button and let's go 128, slightly reduce it. That's as easy as that to adjust. Now I can increase that saturation just a little bit. Alright, and you can delete that layer mask because it's in the master mask set. Okay, that's the benefit of only having to correct one. Where are we? You only have to correct one mask. Right, so that gives you a very rough idea of how you can achieve a range of skin tones. You would still need your contouring colours, of course. I haven't attempted that here. You can balance the warmth. Let's go back. Another thing to take note of is never panic when you first start with your skin, because perceptions can change very quickly if you surround. Oops, oh, it's terrible. Let's just add, so come down to here, right down to the bottom to gradient map, and I could have selected it first, but that's okay. Let's just really quickly show you another use of gradient maps, not for skin. So we created the file gradient map. We're going to fill that in our colour. We can change it to colour mode. Now it just defaulted to foreground to background. But if we look at the gradient editor, we can go with all sorts of colours. There we are, that will do. I just chose one that goes from green, lavendery colour to blue. You see the different colours with the green and the blue showing through. And if you wish to edit, make it more blue, you can do that, or you can make it more aqua. And if you do your dodge and burn on these leaves, the embroidery, that will actually change the colour to brighter too. So if we go OK and accept that, if we zoom in, you can see it has automatically coloured this blue and left the darker tones green and in the shadows. So if that's what you're after, and the blue, that's how easy it is to change colours. You can have multiple colours in. Let's have a look. There we are. Don't have to recolour anything. You can see the red and the blue. You can change the blend mode. That's quite nice, but we'll drop that down. There we are. And you can see now the skin tone looks slightly more balanced. And of course I'd dodge and burn and do all sorts of things. But that's a quick introduction to gradient maps. Benefit is, you see here the light skin tone. I just come down. Let's have a look. See the lighter colour here? It's definitely brighter. We want it even less saturated on those tones. See how it's brought out the definition. Darken that. It's always worth just playing, but hopefully you'll find the gradient maps will be a really nice starting point for you to develop your own colouring. Thanks for watching. Bye.